Am I on now? Hi, this is Robert Burris again. I thought it would be helpful to discuss the emergent church. So this will be my first video on what I'll call emerging deception. Don't mean to make it sound like a new thing. Deception's a very old thing. Um, and there's a lot of implications for me in that statement. My first interest in philosophy came from the Emergent Church. Not that I was ever a member of the Emergent Church, but I must thank them for opening my eyes to the kinds of skullduggery that we have in churches, and particularly in the minds of people claiming to be saved. Anyhow, yeah, this was my first real serious introduction to it, written by Tony Jones. There we go. The New Christians, Dispatches from the Emergent Frontier. And this is appropriate parallel discussion to the discussion of postmodernism because it illustrates the way that materialism, um, deception can clothe themselves in righteous garb and fool people. People who have lost discernment, who think that they can't know truth, who are doubtful. Well, anyway, I wanted to start on page 41, where Tony Jones discusses the beginnings of the emergent church. He says in the mid 1990s, Jack Caputo hosted a conference at Villanova University on postmodern philosophy featuring the inimitable Jacques Derrida, as well as others. Caputo heard that an evangelical pastor from Texas was in the crowd, along with some of his young charges, in quotation marks here. If Brad Cecil is here, I'd like to meet him. Please come and see me, unquote. Caputo said from the stage, Brad, a volunteer pastor of young adults at the conservative, quote unquote, well, he doesn't quote it or unquote it, but I do. Mega church, Pentago Bible. That's the name of the church, Pentago Bible. Had been reading Derrida and Richard Rorty and other postmodern philosophers for a couple of years. And hearing of the conference, he knew he couldn't miss it. Caputo, for his part, couldn't understand what a Texas evangelical was doing at an academic conference featuring Derrida, and who could, in Derrida's own words, rightly pass for an antichrist. That's Derrida's own description of himself, who could rightly pass for an antichrist. One of the things that Tony does here in this book is he puts in these dispatches, a little sidebar kind of thing. So here's dispatch number 4. And that's in keeping with his theme here, the title, Dispatches from the Emergent Frontier. The emergent phenomenon began in the late 1990s when a group of Christian leaders began a conversation about how postmodernism was affecting the faith. Boy, this is this is rich. This whole thing is rich. There's so many rabbits to chase here. But continuing on past the dispatch. Meanwhile, Tim Conder. Oh, that's another video that just got through processing. Tim Conder, a youth pastor at Chapel Hill Bible Church in North Carolina, was invited to a meeting with top American evangelists to determine how they could reach out to the nascent postmodern generation. Doug Paget was another youth pastor at another megachurch, growing increasingly disheartened with the stultifying theology therein. Karen Ward was struggling as a bureaucrat at the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America's national headquarters in Chicago, blah, 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 blah. What he's doing here is he's trying to, first of all, in this first paragraph, and I'm going to watch my time here. Okay, I've got a few more minutes. He's saying that this fellow Brad Cecil was conservative. But the conservative church had been studying postmodern philosophy. Interesting. Nothing wrong with the church studying philosophy. I'm a Christian. These guys, these emergent Nimrods, sorry, I think you deserve the term, the name, are basically, responsible for me digging into this philosophy. But, I'm not studying it because I think there's something, to be gained for evangelical purposes. That is the interesting thing. See, in other words, I'm not Brad Cecil studying this thing so I can come and embrace it, and say, hey, this is the ticket. No, this is the ticket to hell. Hey, I'm judgmental. I'm Christian, right? Okay, but keep watching the videos and you'll find out that maybe the judgment is deserved. And anyway, so he's gathering people in, to this, trying to give him credibility as to why, the whole beginning of the book is based on this theme that the old model has failed. Modernism has failed, and we need a new model. We need a new theology, a new outlook, a new way to read the Bible. And anyway, I'm starting to run short on time. So he pulls in these various names. It's a who's who of the emergent, and how basically things were falling down around them, and he mentions Gen X here, Gen X 0.10 or 1.0, and boy, this was something that was like an act of God that this thing came together. I mean, that's kind of the picture he's painting. And let's see. Okay. Let's pick up here at this paragraph on page 42. The Middle Ages, he said, were characterized by mysticism. God was the author of all. But how do you know that? In mysticism. How do you know anything in mysticism? I mean, it's all shrouded. But in the modern period, starting in the 17th century, man was seen as the author, and we entered an age of empiricism. Now, he continued, we're experiencing the postmodern turn toward an age of enlightened mysticism. Yeah, no, and darkened obfuscation. That's what we're talking about. Although, you call it something else, and it's different. Sorry. This is so sinister, I have to laugh. But by the time Brad was done, the board was covered with a timeline stretching from Jesus to the present, littered with names like Foucault, Descartes, Rorty, and Kant. Just a parade of philosophers, basically. Here was Brad Cecil, once, I'm kind of skipping a little bit. Here was Brad Cecil, once considered a protege of Jerry Falwell, differentially referring to secular philosophers! Exclamation. After Brad's outburst, I guess Doug Pagitt, Chris Say, and Mark Driscoll, the triumvirate of the Young Leaders Network, put their heads together. They decided that Brad was onto something. He got it. Whatever it was. They called Brad over to a corner of the room during the next coffee break and began pointing at others in the room. Does he get it? They asked him. They were splitting up the room between those who understood Brad's presentation and those who didn't. And for their part, Doug, Chris, and Mark were interested in spending time with those who got it. Get what? Brad answered. You know it. The stuff we're talking about. Four of them couldn't yet articulate it. Well, it's postmodernism. Words mean nothing, right? But they could feel it. It felt like the beginning of something new and the overthrow of something old. It felt to them like, uh, sorry, it felt, I'm having so much fun, I'm getting lost here. It's fun. It felt to them like the beginning of a new whole way of understanding who they were as Christians. And they knew that they needed to do something about it. They began traveling the country looking for others who got it. My entree into the group came just a year later, as told by Tony Jones. That is just fascinating because postmodernism rejects the idea that words are sufficient to communicate truth, that language is not cognitive, therefore it's disconnected from the mind. And that those propositions rest on the limitations of human perception and limitations of biology or what have you. But it's interesting because it proposes that once you embrace these limitations and accept the idea that you can't really know anything, well, then you know something. It's sinister. It's not funny, really. It's not funny at all. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. Um, it's tragic that people, Christians in particular, who will accept this. I mean, these people claim to love the Bible, but they treat the Bible as propaganda, as well. We'll get to it in other videos, but there's a whole branch of postmodernism that really does nothing but tear apart writing and speech to get at hidden meaning, you know. And Jones even spells that out in the book. So the whole propositional foundation of the Emergent Church is just absurd and anti-Christian. It is an anti-Christ movement, and shares much in common with old-time theosophy. And promotes mystics and mysticism, and we'll get to that. But yeah, this will be my first video on dealing with emergent deception, and I had fun. Sorry for goofing up, but I make mistakes.